Microphone check. Can you hear me, Brother Kevin?
I can hear you.
There we go. This is going to work. We're going to have no more feedback.
All right, cool.
Thanks for your patience, man.
Oh, no, thank you, bro. It's an honor.
All right. All right. We are back live here. KUAW, Peace Paradigmatics with Kevin Muhammad of the Nation of Islam. I knew that was the problem. I'm like, my doggone Zoom is overriding this doggone audio. But we're back in effect. Got a nice smooth sound now. So we were just talking about the Nick Cannon situation and Minister Farrakhan. And so just taking that another step and dealing with the children of Israel matter. Expound on that. Like, what is your understanding of that in terms of us being the children of Israel? And then how does that correspond with Islam?
Okay, good question. In terms of us being the real children of Israel, of course, we know that there's a whole field of biblical studies called historiography, right? Trying to find out if things that are mentioned in the Bible actually, from a historical perspective, happened, right? So when I was growing up, I think I'm a little bit older than you, but when I was growing up, they would always play the 10 Commandments right before Easter with Charlton Heston and say that so-called white European Jews built the pyramids, right? But when you start studying African history, we learn that in Egypt, they didn't have white Jewish slaves, right? That even in Israel today, see, we don't study, but even in Israel today, they have conversations and they study archaeology. And there's a man named Zev Herzog, S-E'-E-V Herzog, who was an archaeologist at the Tel Aviv University. And he has done research that says that they can't find any historical evidence that the things that's written in the book of Exodus ever happened, in terms of that there were 600,000 Israelites in Egypt that were driven out through the Sinai and started Jerusalem. They can't find that, right? From a historical perspective. However, the way the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us is that 25% of the things you read about in the Bible are actual historical things, but 75% is prophetic, meaning it's going to happen in the future. And in the book of Deuteronomy, I believe it is Deuteronomy 18:18, a hint or a clue is given to that. Because God tells Moses that I will raise up among them a messenger like unto you, Moses. Right? So Moses is the way the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, that Moses in the scripture is given to us as a prototype, right? Of something that's going to happen in the future. So we know from the study of history that no people ever, other than you and I, the so-called Black Negroes of America and the Western Hemisphere, fit the description more of the lost sheep, the lost brothers, those who were stolen for their land and driven on a westerly course and buried in the northeast corner and sold and oppressed for 400 years. No one fits that description more than us.
Right.
It has never happened to anybody else other than us. So when you start relaying things that happen that are spoken of in the scripture, and then you see what actually happened to us, then you have to think there's something to see here. Then you go to the book of Acts. I believe it's Acts chapter 5. They talks about the old Bible used to say that Jesus was not hung on a tree, killed on the cross. The old Bibles used to say he was hung on a tree.
Yep.
What happened? What has happened to you and I?
Lynched.
We have been hung on a tree.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So it's also said in the Bible that Jesus is like unto Adam, right? The first Adam died so that the second Adam may succeed. But Adam represents a people. But so does Jesus, the Messiah. He represents a people.
Yes,
but
sir.
The correlation also is when you go to Kemet, when you study Maya. On the walls of the hieroglyphics, the Medu Neter, they had the expression of the Christ figure, right? But the Christ figure that they spoke of wasn't just one individual, it represented a people. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that that story is talking about one person that God will come from the east even unto the west and raise one up. But he's the first begotten of the dead. And the people that he teaches, you and I, the lost brother, the lost sheep, we will rise up to fulfill a messianic work. Mm-hmm. So we don't teach the children of Israel the way that the present thought of children of Israel, meaning that you are somehow better than everybody else, that people are supposed to just give things to you because you're God's chosen, so you can sit back and relax. No, we teach that God's chosen means we are given a responsibility and a duty. Look how degraded this world has become. There's war and rumors of wars everywhere. Everybody, it's almost as if no prophet of God or messenger has ever walked the earth. So the chosen people means we have a responsibility and a duty to take this new consciousness that we're learning, the light from God that we are learning, and go raise our brothers up from the terrible conditions they live in, starting with first with our own community, making our own community a safe and decent place to live. And then we grow, because we know we have brothers all over the world, in the Caribbean, in the mother continent Africa, in the islands of the Pacific, in China, in India, all over the world. It's our responsibility to go take this teaching and reform the whole world.
Powerful.
That's how we see being the children of Israel. It means a responsibility and a duty.
Okay. So then inject Islam into that particular equation, because I think there may be even some, for those who are not aware of Islam, particularly like in the Christian fold, maybe even in the Israelite and the Jewish fold, there may be some misconceptions that are present about what Islam is all about, and particularly as known as the Black Islamic expression. What characteristics, I want to affirm stuff as opposed to we don't want to take anything away, but what characteristics are present, because you were talking about the redemption of humanity as well. What does Islam espouse as relates to the characteristics of redemption? What does that entail? How do Muslims go about engaging in that process in light to the negative conceptions that are present, let's say from like Al Qaeda or all these different so-called quote unquote terrorist movements of Islam? What does the Nation of Islam espouse? What are the tenets of the faith, and then how does the Islamic community go about bringing forth that reality of redemption?
Okay. Well, first I want to start off, because we know this is the peace paradigm. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So we know when we first greeted each other in the Hebrew Israelite tradition, you use Hebrew, you say shalom.
Okay.
In Islam, Arabic, we say salam, but it comes from the same triliteral root of the S, the L, and the M, which means peace or right. And we also know that these Abrahamic faiths came from the same region or area. So they are actually not the same, but they are cognate traditions, meaning they come from the same or similar source.
Right.
That's why they have similar teaching. They have similar principles. So even in the Holy Quran, it says that the Muslims can eat the Hebrews' food, because the dietary law of the Hebrews is similar to Islam, because we have a connection, right? But then you get into, well, if we believe that we are the children of Israel, then why do we practice Islam instead of Hebrew? Right?
Right.
Now, like I said, we have to go back thousands of years, because many people have the misconception that Islam started with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in the 7th century. That's not true, right? Islam started actually when God created the heavens and the earth. But from a historical standpoint, we can prove from history that the principles or the so-called rituals that are associated with Islam, belief in Allah, as the term used for God, going to Hajj or going to the Kaaba in Mecca and circumambulating the Kaaba, all these things were in practice thousands of years before Prophet Muhammad, right? Even more than that, because you use the term Black Islam. Mm-hmm. Many people nowadays associate Islam or Arabs with white-looking Arabs, or as we say, the Arabs who run all the corner stores. But when you go back into history, that we know that the original Arab was black people, right? The white Arab that lives there now came later, after the black Arabs started conquering Persia, Iraq, Turkey, and they converted to Islam. And then they grew in population and they drove the black ones out. So that's why people see white looking Muslims and they don't see the original black one, right? But then to take it further than that, if you go back and find the earliest Torah, right, that were written long time ago, from that standpoint, they didn't use the word Elohim to denote the God, right? Elah or Allah. So we would say, Abraham used the word Allah, not Elohim or Jehovah. But we need a liberator. We need Jehovah. But originally, there was more commonality in the cultural traditions because they were cognate spiritual principles in the whole area. So we have much more in common than what people think. And I'll end this with this point. We know that many of our people, when we were brought from Africa, many of our people went to Curacao or to Brazil. So they speak Dutch or Portuguese. Right. Others went to Guadeloupe, they speak French, or Haiti. Others came here or went to Jamaica, they speak English. So those people in those colonized areas, they started taking on the mindset of the oppressor. If the English are fighting the French, then I have a problem with the French because I speak English. If the French are fighting the Spanish, then I have a problem with Cubans because they speak Spanish. But we're all the same people. So we don't want to adopt what's going on now, that because the so-called European Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews who are in Israel now, have a problem or they're fighting with the Arabs, that we here in America, we take on their mindset. Because they have problems, they're fighting Jews against Muslims, that now we supposed to adopt the same thing when we're really the same people. It doesn't make sense.
Right. So what is the program to establish solidarity across faiths within the Islamic tradition? How does the Nation of Islam go about establishing that solidarity? You spoke about like Jesse Jackson and how Minister Farrakhan came to his support, right? What programs do you all actually exercise to go about establishing that solidarity amongst our people?
Well, it has to do with first, just like we have to educate our people in terms of who we are as Black people. We have to educate ourselves that we are one people, no matter where we are on the planet. Whether we live in KCMO, KCK, we live in the 30s, we live in the 60s, or we live out in Lee Summit. We're the same people. So that's first how we start. And then we know that as you grow to love yourself, it's always self first. You know, in this world, they teach us that we need to love everybody. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, if you show me someone who says they love everybody, I'll show you someone who does not love themselves. Because self comes first.
Right.
So if we can get our people to love self and love being Black, that will immediately drop the murder rate.
Yes, sir.
The murder rate is so high because we don't like ourselves. So it don't mean nothing if I smoke a nigger. Right. Why? It don't matter. But we don't take that same stuff over to Leawood because we know what's going to happen in Leawood, right? So we start there, and then we start to unify with one another. So say like with the other faith traditions, we have to unify on what's good, what we can agree on, what's good for us. The freedom and liberation of our people. right?
True.
So we can't unite over labels. Let's unite over principle. If we both agree on what's best and treating each other right and have mutual respect, we're never going to agree on everything.
Right.
That's not the way God made everything.
Right.
Because we have different backgrounds, different perspectives. But if we can agree that we need to do something to stem the tide of violence in our neighborhood and build businesses for our youth to have jobs and employment, can't we unify on that?
Right.
And all that other stuff, we can break bread as brothers and debate and build and all that. But we don't need animosity
at all.
But we just want to further each other's understanding. But it's not done out of hate or trying to, with this new social media construct, we want to denigrate somebody else. Right. We don't need to do that. True. We can come in peace. We can disagree. We can build. We can learn from one another. Because you might say something from your perspective that I didn't know. And just because I'm a Muslim don't mean what you said isn't right. So I have to go back and study. And I said, brother, you're right.
Right.
And we can build.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And another thing that I want to address, because our time is running short, is the view and the actual program for the African woman or the black woman. And I think right now we know our women are under attack in so many ways, you know, be it physically, spiritually, emotionally, of course, what media is doing in sending a spell or casting a program on, you know, the pretty much like the horrification of the black woman. You know, this new song WAP that Cardi B and Meg Thee Stallion have come out with that is causing a lot of controversy, you know, but it's just a woman expressing her sexual preferences. You know, what's so bad about that? What views do you and the Nation of Islam espouse as relates to like the promiscuity and the whoredom of women, you know, the just the free love type of thing?
Right. Well, first of all, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that no nation can rise higher than its woman. So you don't measure civilization by looking at a man. You judge civilization by looking at the woman. And her status will tell you what the status of the culture is, right? So just like we said earlier about them casting the minister as anti-Semites, but we know that the people who run these media companies don't look like us. And they promote certain things to our people. So over the years, the standard of dress, the standard of culture of black people in general, but black women in particular, has gone down. So who's going to stand up for them? It has to be you and I coming together. It has to be the men of Kansas City and America that stand up and build a society to protect our women, right? We have to make a society that they can feel free and comfortable to walk the streets without being abused, without being killed, and feel safe and secure. Then they won't have to do certain things to take off their clothes to try to get attention, because they have a man that God has made to be their protector and provider. That's the biggest thing.
Right.
We as men are not providing for our women.
Or protecting.
So they're out here doing whatever they have to do to survive. That falls on us.
Yes, sir.
That's our problem. And the trick of Satan has always been divide and conquer, right? So as long as the so-called conscious community, the so-called religious community, the spiritual community, whatever you want to call it, as long as we are divided by label, we will never have a mass of people going in the same direction to change the society, that we give the women something that they can look forward to, that they can be proud of the men, they can be proud of their community. They don't have to take their clothes off. So we don't blame Sister Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion. We blame, first of all, the media companies that are promoting this. But we have to, truthfully, we have to look in the mirror. And the blame lies on us.
Yes, sir.
Because we are not coming together to do what we need to do to build a future for ourselves, our women, our wives, our girls, and our family.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And my last question before we end, of course, we know Joe Biden has selected Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate. What are your views of this year's upcoming election and just the political forum in general, as relates to us as a people?
Well, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us to be careful in dealing with the national elections. Now, we fully support our local elections and holding our local officials to account. But what we do not agree on is pulling all of our hopes in a benevolent white person to fix our problems for us. So that's why when I sent you the quote earlier, we must do for self or suffer the consequences. As we see America under Trump, it's unraveling. There are former members of the CIA that said America right now looks like a third world country that's getting ready to implode, right? So we can't put all our hopes in Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. I know some people have been questioning, is she black or not? That's not a conversation we want to have, because we know her father is from Jamaica. And if any one of us have been following Brother Runoko Rashidi, we know that her mother is from India, but she's from the southern part of India where they're black people, right? Dravidians. So she's a black woman. We might not like her politics. Mm-hmm. Some of us women who might be deltas or whatever, you might not like the fact that she's an AKA, but she is a black woman, right? So whoever is the president, we know what happened with President Obama. We didn't put the fire behind him. So now we're like, he didn't do anything for us. But no, that was our fault, that we didn't hold his feet to the fire and come with a black agenda that's good for us. So no matter who is the president, we need to do something for ourselves. And I'll end with this. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan at our Savior's Day address in February, the title of his lecture was The Unraveling of America. But what many of us have done, because we are enamored by the wealth of America, we have chosen to become a part of something that is unraveling. But if you look at what happened with the COVID-19, look at the economy. It's in shambles. So we can't put our faith in this. The only thing we could do now is put our faith into God, the Most High, the Supreme Being. And if we have any money, put our little small nickels and dimes together and buy some farmland, buy some food and water to store in your houses. If we saw that storm that happened in Iowa last week, it destroyed 10 million acres of farmland. Wow. A famine is coming that was predicted in the Bible. So we need to prepare ourselves. So I'll say to anyone who's interested in politics or anything that's going on, log on to Digital Final Call and get a subscription to the Final Call newspaper. Right now, because of COVID-19, the brothers aren't in the streets selling the Final Call. But you can still download your information and stay up to date at digitalfinalcall.com. So that's what we want to say. We want to stay informed, because Thomas Jefferson said for democracy to be effective, it's dependent on an informed electorate. And right now, our people aren't informed. So our job is to take the truth to the people. Like the scripture says, take the gospel, the good news. So we always say the Final Call newspaper, we're taking it to the north, the east, the west, and the south, because we need the truth.
Powerful. I appreciate that, Brother Muhammad. Indeed,
thank
indeed.
You, brother.
I want to thank you for, again, coming on to Shifting Paradigms and sharing that piece paradigmatic. Man, we'll definitely be in touch and continue to move forward as time unfolds to keep the solidarity going, at least, you know what I'm saying, and then see what we can do to get our people in a better position. So once again, thank you. You all have listened in to Shifting Paradigms here live on KUAW, where the Black Family Technology Awareness Association holds this down and sponsors this. But tune in again to the next show. We're going to be back in 2 weeks. We're going to have my man Wise Intelligent of Poor Righteous Teachers on. His name is Timothy Taylor, a very, very iconic hip-hop artist in the industry. And so he will be our feature next show. But want to again thank Brother Muhammad for coming in. Assalamu alaikum, and to you, my brother.
Walaikum
And
salam.
we will be back shortly. So thank you all for tuning in to Shifting Paradigms. B. Michael signing out. Shalom, shalom.